He was not loud like Peter, not fiery like John, not famous like Paul, but in the early church he became known as James the Just, a man of prayer, a man of wisdom, a man of courage. He led the church in Jerusalem for decades, guiding believers through persecution, famine, and division, and at the age of 94, beaten and stoned by his own people, he sealed his faith with blood. This is the story of James the Less. The New Testament refers to several men named James. James the Less, also called James the son of Alphaeus, is often distinguished from James the brother of John. Some traditions identify him as the same James who became the leader of the Jerusalem church, known as the Lord's brother. Who was James the Less? Though debate continues about his precise relationship to Jesus, what is clear is his central role in the early church. Chosen by Christ as one of the 12, he lived quietly in the background during Jesus' ministry, but after the resurrection, he rose into leadership as a pillar of the church. When persecution scattered believers, James remained in Jerusalem. Paul describes him as a key figure, James, Cephas, and John, who seemed to be pillars. Leader of the Jerusalem church. At the Jerusalem Council in Acts 15, when the church debated whether Gentiles must keep the law of Moses, James gave the decisive judgment. We should not trouble the Gentiles who turn to God, but should write to them to abstain from idols, sexual immorality, and blood. Here James showed wisdom and balance, respecting Jewish tradition, yet affirming that salvation is by grace, not by the law. His voice preserved unity in the church and opened the door for the gospel to spread freely among the nations. The Epistle of James. James also wrote the letter that bears his name. A fiery practical book sometimes called the Proverbs of the New Testament. He declared, "Faith without works is dead." His letter emphasizes not empty profession, but active obedience, caring for orphans and widows, bridling the tongue, resisting partiality, humbling oneself before God. The Epistle of James reminds us that true faith is not only what we believe but how we live. It calls believers to perseverance under trials, wisdom from above, and prayer that avails much. James's martyrdom. According to early church historians like Hegesippus and Josephus, James was deeply respected, even by many Jews. He was nicknamed the Just because of his holiness and constant prayer. His knees, it was said, were calloused like a camel's from kneeling in intercession. But as Christianity spread, opposition grew. Around AD 62, some sources say AD 60, Jewish leaders brought James to the pinnacle of the temple, demanding he denounce Jesus. Instead, James proclaimed boldly that Christ was seated at the right hand of God. Furious, they threw him down. Still alive, he prayed for his attackers, echoing Stephen before him. Then he was stoned, and finally a fuller's club, a heavy staff used in linen work, was brought down upon his head, killing him. He was 94 years old. The law of men condemned him as a blasphemer. Grace crowned him as a martyr. With a glowing cross, grace, theological contrast. Law and grace in James's story. Law. To the Pharisees, James represented betrayal, abandoning tradition by exalting Christ above the temple. Their law sentenced him to death. Grace. James saw Christ as the fulfillment of the law. His leadership at the Jerusalem Council testified that salvation is by grace through faith, not by keeping Moses' law. His death reflected grace as he prayed for his enemies. James teaches us that holiness matters. His epistle is a call to real faith, faith that serves, speaks truth, resists sin, and endures trials. He teaches us that leadership is service. As Bishop of Jerusalem, he lived humbly, prayed constantly, and guided wisely. And he teaches us that endurance is possible. At 94, beaten, stoned, and struck down, he remained faithful, forgiving his enemies, confessing Christ with his final breath. James's life asks us, is our faith alive? Do our works reflect our words? Do we endure trials with perseverance? Do we pray with fervor? Pray today, Lord, make my faith living, my prayer steadfast, my walk holy, and my witness bold. Help me endure to the end as James endured. And remember, the same Christ who strengthened James to lead the church in Jerusalem, to write words of wisdom, and to die with forgiveness on his lips, will strengthen you today. Live wisely, pray constantly, endure faithfully, and when your time comes may you be found like James, faithful unto death.